The Choctaw people are a Native American group belonging to the Muskogean language family, which also includes other southeastern tribes. Historically, their lands encompassed areas in present-day Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, as well as parts of Georgia and Florida. The Choctaw trace their origins to a mound-building, agriculturally based society that thrived in the Mississippi River Valley. This culture is believed to have emerged around 1000 CE, though earlier migrations to the region are suggested by oral traditions, which state that the Choctaw have lived there for at least 12,000 years. Various creation stories indicate that the Choctaw were originally a collection of distinct groups speaking different dialects. They are closely related to the Chickasaw, another Muskogean-speaking tribe, and their northern neighbors. Later, both tribes would be among the 5 civilized tribes, a term settlers used to describe them due to their adoption of certain European American customs. The Choctaw were primarily farmers, with corn being their most vital crop. They also cultivated beans, melons, pumpkins, peas, sunflowers, and tobacco. Land was cleared for agriculture by girdling trees and burning the undergrowth. Their advanced agricultural techniques often resulted in surplus crops, which they traded with neighboring tribes and European settlers. With the introduction of livestock, the Choctaw began setting aside some of their corn harvest to feed cattle. Their success in raising cattle eventually allowed them to trade surplus livestock with other nations. In addition to farming, the Choctaw hunted deer and bear, fished, and gathered wild nuts and fruits to sustain their communities. Choctaw society was organized into 2 moieties, each made up of multiple clans. These clans were further subdivided into local groups that could encompass several towns, a single village, or even part of a village. The moieties played a central role in Choctaw social and ceremonial life, with strict rules prohibiting marriage within the same moiety. Marriages required spouses to belong to opposite moieties. The Choctaw followed a matrilineal kinship system, where children were considered part of their mother's clan. Fathers did not hold authority over their children. Instead, this responsibility rested with the children's maternal uncles. Additionally, the Choctaw were divided into 3 main districts, each contributing to the governance and organization of their society. These divisions influenced both their day-to-day lives and larger ceremonial traditions, reflecting the complexity and richness of Choctaw culture. Each district of the Choctaw Nation was led by a principal chief known as a Mingo, elected by the man of the district. The qualities most valued in a Mingo were proven administrative ability, a distinguished military record, and an illustrious lineage. The Mingo was supported by elected captains and sub-captains, holding a status superior to that of war chiefs. The 3 Mingos, representing the 3 districts, often convened at national council meetings to debate and address significant issues, demonstrating the Choctaw's efficient and semi-democratic political system. In Choctaw tradition, when a child was born, a set of livestock, comprising a mare, a colt, a cow, a calf, a sow, and piglets, was set aside for the child. These animals were not to be sold or given away, ensuring that when the child reached maturity and formally inherited the stock, they would have a solid start in life. Adoption was also common within the Choctaw community. Upon reaching maturity, Choctaw boys and girls had the freedom to choose a partner, provided the spouse came from the opposite moiety. Marriages endured as long as both partners were content, and separation or divorce carried no negative stigma. In the event of separation, all children remained with the mother. Both monogamy and polygamy were accepted in Choctaw society, with polygamous marriages often involving sisters or close relatives as co-wives, though unrelated wives were occasionally seen. The ancestors of the Choctaw, part of the Mississippian culture, were renowned for constructing large earthen platform mounds and mounds of other shapes. The mother mound of the Choctaw, Nonawea, is a significant earthwork platform mound located in central eastern Mississippi. Nonawea and a nearby cave hold deep spiritual and cultural significance for the Choctaw, serving as sacred sites tied to their origin stories and shared with other nearby nations. Choctaw homes were constructed using wooden posts bound with lianas, woody vines, and covered in mud, creating durable and practical structures suited to their environment. These homes reflect the resourcefulness and ingenuity of Choctaw architecture, as well as their deep connection to their natural surroundings. The roofs of Choctaw homes were traditionally made from cypress or pine bark, with a hole left in each gable end to allow smoke from the internal fire to escape. By the 1800s, these structures were largely replaced by log cabins, reflecting changes brought by European influence and evolving lifestyles. Women played a central role in daily labor, working in the fields, making clothing, and preparing and storing food. This work was deeply respected as they were seen as the givers of life. Men were responsible for hunting, constructing homes, crafting tools, carrying out governmental responsibilities, and protecting the tribe in times of war. The Choctaw rarely initiated offensive campaigns, but were known for their bravery in retaliatory battles when attacked. Their war tactics relied heavily on stealth and cunning, emphasizing strategy over sheer force. Both Choctaw men and women wore their hair long, and men, like many other Native Americans, removed their beards. A unique tradition involved flattening the foreheads of infants using wooden boards, resulting in flat frontal skulls, a cultural marker of the Choctaw. In terms of clothing, the Choctaw dressed similarly to other southeastern tribes. Men typically wore deerskin breechcloths, along with a skin shirt and leggings during colder months. Women wore deerskin skirts and shawls made of skin, woven feathers, or the inner bark of the mulberry tree. Sports have always been an integral part of Choctaw culture, with stickball being a prominent traditional team sport still played today. Historically, stickball served multiple purposes. It was a means of resolving disputes and rivalries between different groups and families, as well as fostering friendly competition among clans. The first recorded contact between the Choctaw and Europeans occurred in 1540 during Hernando de Soto's expedition. The Spanish encountered Tuscaloosa, a Choctaw Mingo, from whom they demanded servants, canoes, and women. Tuscaloosa provided carriers and rafts, but delayed delivering women until the Spaniards reached the town of Mobila. This encounter marked the beginning of a tumultuous relationship between the Choctaw and European settlers, setting the stage for centuries of cultural and territorial challenges. Upon reaching the town of Mobila, Tuscaloosa, who had been held hostage by Hernando de Soto's expedition, escaped and refused to make any further concessions to the Spaniards. This led to a bloody battle in which the town was burned. Casualties were significant on both sides, numbering in the hundreds or possibly thousands. Tuscaloosa was killed during the conflict. After the battle, the Spaniards remained in the area for about a month to recover before moving on. Sporadic interactions between the Choctaw and Europeans occurred in the following years, but significant contact was not established again until over 150 years later, in 1699, when French explorer Pierre Le Moyne d'Iberville reached the region. The Choctaw allied with the French, providing them with food and support in wars against the English and their Native American allies, such as the Chickasaw. This alliance was rooted in mutual interests, with the Choctaw seeking to defend themselves against slave raids conducted by tribes allied with the English colonists, such as the Chickasaw. These raids often targeted Choctaw communities, making the French a natural ally in their defense. Before the arrival of Europeans, Native American tribes in the region, including the Choctaw, had long taken captives during warfare. Captives were typically either enslaved or adopted into families, depending on the circumstances. In the 18th century, as the French and English competed for dominance in the fur trade, the Choctaw joined the French in several military campaigns. Notably, in the early 1700s, the Choctaw and French forces combined to defeat the Natchez people, inflicting severe losses and forcing the survivors to abandon their homelands and integrate into other tribes. During this period, the French and English engaged in the Chickasaw Wars, with the Choctaw supporting the French in their efforts to disrupt Chickasaw trade with the English. Although the Choctaw and French forces were unable to decisively defeat the Chickasaw, hostilities between the groups persisted. By this time, the Choctaw population was estimated at around 12,000. In 1747, internal divisions within the Choctaw Nation erupted into a civil war between its three districts, driven by differing trade allegiances. The Eastern District remained staunchly pro-French, the Western District leaned toward trading with the English, and the Southern District maintained a neutral stance. These divisions underscored the growing external pressures and internal challenges faced by the Choctaw during this volatile period in their history. As a result of the Choctaw Civil War, hundreds of Choctaw lost their lives, but the pro-French Eastern faction managed to maintain their influence. Following France's defeat by Great Britain in the Seven Years' War, France ceded its territory east of the Mississippi River to Britain in 1763. From 1763 to 1781, Britain became the primary European trading partner of the Choctaw. In 1766, Spanish forces established a presence in New Orleans after taking control of French territory west of the Mississippi. The Western Choctaw occasionally traded with the Spanish in that region. During the American Revolution, the Choctaw were divided in their allegiances. More than 1,000 Choctaw fought for Britain, primarily against Spain, while significant numbers also fought for the Spanish and for the United States. These divisions reflected the Choctaw's strategic responses to the shifting dynamics of colonial powers in the region. After the war, George Washington implemented a policy aimed at integrating southeastern Native American tribes into European American culture. Many Choctaw had already begun adopting European customs, intermarrying with Europeans, converting to Christianity, and in some cases, owning African American slaves. In 1811, Tecumseh, a Shawnee leader, attempted to form a Native American confederation to resist American expansion. He sought Choctaw support, but the tribe declined his invitation and instead sided with the United States when the War of 1812 began. Under Chief Pushmataha's leadership, 125 Choctaw warriors joined General Ferdinand Claiborne in November 1813. On December 23, 1813, these warriors participated in the Battle of Holy Ground, a decisive attack against Creek forces. Following this victory, more Choctaw volunteered to fight for the United States. By February 1814, Pushmataha commanded a larger Choctaw force and joined General Andrew Jackson's troops to campaign against Creek territories in Florida. After the Creeks' final defeat at the Battle of Horseshoe Bend in March 1814, many Choctaw returned home. During the Battle of New Orleans in 1815, Choctaw warriors played a critical role. They harassed the British right flank, emerging from the swamps to deliver deadly rifle fire at close range while remaining under cover. Their tactics caused significant British casualties, with at least 50 soldiers killed and many more severely wounded. Between 1801 and 1830, the Choctaw signed a series of treaties with the United States, ceding nearly all their lands in Mississippi in exchange for territory in what is now Oklahoma. These treaties culminated in the Treaty of Dancing Rabbit Creek in 1830, which initiated the Choctaws' forced relocation westward along the Trail of Tears. Despite these challenges, the Choctaw continued to demonstrate resilience and adaptability in the face of immense hardship. During the Indian removal period, President Andrew Jackson used the Choctaw as the model for his policy of Indian removal. In 1831, nearly 17,000 Choctaw became the first Native American group to embark on the infamous Trail of Tears, forcibly relocated to Indian Territory, modern-day Oklahoma. The journey was devastating, with nearly 2,500 Choctaw dying along the way due to disease, exposure, and starvation. However, the Treaty of Dancing Rabbit Creek allowed some Choctaw to remain in Mississippi as American citizens, subject to U.S. and state laws. Approximately 6,000 Choctaw chose to stay, but they faced constant legal disputes, harassment, and intimidation from American settlers. Despite these hardships, the Choctaw showed remarkable compassion and generosity. In 1847, upon learning of the Irish potato famine, the Choctaw donated $170, equivalent to over $5,000 today, to aid the Irish, establishing a lasting bond of friendship between the two peoples. This gesture is remembered and celebrated as a symbol of empathy and solidarity. You can learn more about this in my video. Click on the right end of the screen to watch it. During the American Civil War, the Choctaw in both Oklahoma and Mississippi predominantly sided with the Confederate States. Some Choctaw identified with the Southern cause due to cultural ties and the practice of slaveholding. Additionally, their resentment toward the federal government, stemming from the traumatic removals 30 years earlier and ongoing mistreatment, influenced their allegiance. Choctaw battalions were formed in Indian Territory, Oklahoma, and Mississippi to support the Confederacy. After the war, the Choctaw were required to free their slaves and grant them citizenship, creating a group known as Choctaw Freedmen. In World War I, the Choctaw played a pivotal role as the first Native American code talkers, using their language to create unbreakable codes for the U.S. military. This practice continued in World War II, where Choctaw individuals again served as code talkers and in other military capacities. Native Americans, including the Choctaw, had the highest volunteer rate of any ethnic group in the U.S. military during World War II, reflecting their dedication and patriotism. When the Choctaw first established relations with the French in 1699, their population was estimated at 15,000 to 20,000. By the early 1900s, there were approximately 19,000 Choctaw citizens in Oklahoma and 1,700 Mississippi Choctaw. Today, the Choctaw Nation is one of the largest Native American nations, with a population exceeding 200,000, embodying a legacy of resilience, adaptability, and cultural pride.